Well, they avoided that conversation. And then guess what? About 6 months in, it got a little weird because some of those opportunities came up and there wasn't clear roles and responsibilities and kind of status quo of like, if this happens, this is how we're going to handle it. And, I think it's dovetailing a little bit away from each other, or not dovetailing, but you know what I mean? They're splitting up a little bit. What's up, everybody? My name's Mike Sjogren, here with my co-host,
Emanuele Pani.
We're part of a group of specialized real estate investors you've probably never heard of.
We didn't start with deep pockets or wealthy families, and we don't rely on 401ks, mutual funds, or traditional real estate investing.
In fact, many of us don't even own the properties that fund our freedom. If you ask the money experts out there, they'd say what we do is impossible, yet it's happening every single day.
It's happening through a new niche called short-term rentals.
We are Short-Term Rental Nation, and these are our secrets. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Short-Term Rental Secrets podcast. I am your host, Mike Sjogren, here with my main man and brother from another mother, Mr. Emanuele Pani. What's up, E?
My brother, so good to see you. It's been a little while. I love when we do episodes in a batch, but then I don't get to see you or talk to you for a couple of weeks in between them, so it's not as fun for me. But overall, man, life is good. Pani Properties, the brokerage, officially opened last week, so our real estate
nice dude, congrats. That's amazing.
It's in full swing. So if you're in the South Florida market looking for a brokerage or a realtor or anything of those things, let us take care of you. So that's been a long time coming through, so I'm really excited and really looking forward to kind of like building another business. So part of me is also like, oh my goodness, it's going to be a whole other set of things to do. But at the same time, that's what we do, right? Like I don't know how else
that's
to
the
do
game,
things, right? Like I don't know how else to do things, right? Like I'm not able to just kind of chill. This is just how my brain works. I'm like, okay, I do this full time. I might as well just own it, right?
100%.
So it's been exciting. How are you guys?
We're good, man. We're good. We kind of wrapping up the crazy busy season. Although we're still going strong through the fall, which is great. Launching one more property in the next couple of weeks, just waiting on some more deliveries. My garage is completely full again. As always, the garage just becomes a storage unit, and I have a storage unit for STR stuff. So
yeah,
I don't know how it ends up here, but anyway, contemplating doing a live event. I went golfing with our boy Ryan Snow a couple weeks ago. So Ryan and Cody Sanchez are business partners. They have a company called Unconventional Acquisitions, and they teach people how to buy small businesses. And so we were catching up, and he was like, "Hey, man, we should do like a joint event at your hotel."
Yeah.
And like have like a small intimate event, like 20 people or something like that.
I love Cody Sanchez. I heard her speak at a One Life event, and she was
she's
wearing this suede jacket. I'll remember for the rest of my life. And she was just rocking it. Like she just dropped bombs and bombs. And she would just, I don't know, dude, like you just see people in their natural element. And it's just like when you watch like a great athlete do its thing and you just watch it in awe and you're like, I don't know how you do it. She was the same thing. She was so knowledgeable and just so charismatic and Ryan too. Like I love Ryan too. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Yep. So we'll see. We're tentatively looking at November because that's honestly the first point in time where the whole hotel would be open for a couple nights, which is a good problem to have because I was like, oh, maybe we'll do it in October. Nope. Like we're still booked through October.
Yeah.
So
we've been slammed too. It's good.
Yeah. So that's exciting. My birthday's tomorrow, which is also fun. So
I forget they were September babies. My birthday is next week.
Yeah, exactly.
You see, all great people are born in September. This is a new theory that I have. You heard it here first, and it's been proven by just me and Mike, and that's all we need. It's a proof of concept. It's that. Oh yeah.
I love it. I love it. Quick plug too. So if you haven't already, make sure you guys join the free Facebook group. So Mike Riley, who's one of our top mastermind students, he's been on the show before. He and I are doing every week on Mondays, we have Mindset Monday. And then on Tuesdays, we have Tuesdays with Mike and Mike. So Mondays are obviously all about the mindset side of it. And then Tuesdays are all things STR. So, some weeks we're talking about locks. Last week we talked about how to hire a virtual assistant, like all these different key topics for short-term rentals. And that's right now just in the Facebook group. And it's totally free to join. So go check that out over on Facebook, Short-Term Rental Secrets group. We're going to be doing another webinar towards the end of this month. I think I've got it tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, the 22nd. I think it's going to be at 1:00. I'll keep you guys posted on the registration link and all that good stuff. But I know before we were doing it quarterly, but a lot of you guys have sent DMs and different messages. So I'm going to do my best to try and do that monthly for you guys and just cover different topics and on how to really launch, automate, and scale a short-term rental business. So ramping that up. Trying to think if there's anything else. Still working on the golf game, bro.
Yeah. I mean, that's one of those never ending things to work on.
Yeah.
It's one of those kind of disciplines that you'll do for the rest of your life.
100%.
Yeah.
I had an interesting experience last week though. Quick pivot and then we'll get into the episode.
Let's go.
I was playing in a tournament over the weekend and the guy that I was paired up with was so good. Like he's a scratch golfer, which means like he shoots like 72 where I shoot like 95. And so he was really good. And it was fascinating because the first like 4 or 5 holes, we were even. Like I was just keeping up with him. And then he made a little comment. He was like, are you like trying to pull a fast one on me? Cause we had some money on the line and all these different things. And he was like, dude, are you hustling me right now? Like, are you serious? Like, there's no way this is your handicap. And after that hole, it all fell apart for me. And I had this realization after. We've talked about it a couple of times on here about like your self-image and like why it's so important. Right. And so those first few holes, I kept visualizing like all my shots and I was in that identity for myself that I'm trying to create around being a really good golfer. And then once that came in, I let it sabotage me. And I went back into that old identity of, oh, you shouldn't be playing this good. And then the round went to hell. But it was just a good reminder for me to like, it's so important to have that, to work on that identity and that self-image and that confidence in yourself, because the skills are there. It's just the confidence and the self-image that you have that will hold you back, even if all the other pieces are in place. Right. Mm-hmm. And it was just a really good reminder for me. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah. And what sometimes what people say, right? Like I get that all the time. It's just it's said in a joking manner, right? He wasn't trying to sabotage your game.
No, not at all.
But you're there and you receive it, and then your subconscious mind just takes off and you can't even control it, right? A lot of the times. And it's kind of like the same thing. I played a lot of tennis in my life and I had those same moments, right? When you're like, I am playing amazing. And the moment you realize you're playing amazing, everything falls apart because you're like, wait, I usually don't play like this. And then you create the reality that you're like, I usually am not this good. So like, I shouldn't be this good right now. What's going on? And then you're not that good anymore. And then just
that thought comes in, poof, it just ruins it.
Yeah, you're finished. You know what I mean? You're just like, oh, that's why sometimes you just gotta keep lying to yourself. Ignorance is bliss. Just
well, you see yourself as the person that you want to be already. So you see yourself, you visualize yourself performing at that level, and then the body just follows suit. You just got to keep those negative thoughts out because they'll pull you back down to where you were before if you let them sneak in there. So
100%.
It was a good lesson. But
yeah.
Anyway, let's dive in. So today's episode, we want to talk about partnerships. And E and I were talking offline, and one of the things he suggested was we should do like an episode about like all of your FAQs that you get from people. And through the coaching program and everything else, like what are the most common questions? And after we hung up, I had an idea for like a series that we could do called like Get the Fack Out of Here, like in Boston. Like, I don't know. I thought it was funny, but anyway.
The khakis.
One of the
khakis.
like FAQ, not F. You get what I'm saying. Anyway,
yeah.
Bad joke. Anyway, back to the topic for today. One of the questions that I get asked a lot is, should I partner with so-and-so for my business? Like, should I get a partner right out the gate for my short-term rental business? And so I want to unpack this with E because there's a lot of things to consider before you just jump into a partnership with somebody. And I've made a lot of mistakes with this over the past. And I want to break that down. So the first thing that I would say is, again, getting clear on what is your goal with the business first, making sure that that goal is in alignment with whoever you're going to partner with, and then asking yourself, what skill sets does this person bring to the table that I do not have? Like, what are they naturally good at that I am not good at? And what do they enjoy doing that I do not enjoy doing? Because one of the mistakes that I made early on was I thought I wanted a partner, but what I really wanted was just an accountability buddy to just go through this journey with, because it was scary to do it alone.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm going to partner up with a buddy of mine, or like E and I talked about partnering up on some stuff years ago on the multifamily side, and then we were like, dude, we have a lot of the same skill sets. Like, this partnership is just not going to work. Like, we're both like, you know, visionary high level thinkers, but on the execution and the detail stuff, that's not our wheelhouse. We can do it, but we don't enjoy doing it. So the partnership just doesn't make sense. Right. So you got to find a partner who's more of like the thinker and can kind of see around the corner and like where you're going. And then you need that integrator that's really good with taking that vision and getting it implemented and creating the systems and getting the people. And, there's a great book by Gino Wickman called Rocket Fuel, where he talks about those two different types of people, the integrator and the visionary. And I think it's a little oversimplified, but it's a really good starting point to get a sense of like, does a partnership make sense for me at this stage? So I'm going to kick it over to you for a second and just get your thoughts on that. And then we'll
Yeah.
go a little different direction.
Yeah. So what I want to speak about is just my personal experience in partnerships that actually didn't work. Right. And all of those were partnerships that I did with people that I liked, and we were friends. But the problem is that I liked them and they were like me. Right. So, and that's exactly what you were saying, right? Like, it didn't work because all we wanted to do was just talk big vision and talk things, and we get really excited about like the vision and the prospects and everything else. And then there was no execution. And then the friendships ended up really suffering because you can't help it, right? Like, when you put effort into something, money into something, and then it goes bad, especially if you don't have that big why conversation in the beginning and the alignment of your exit strategies, it gets really sour. And then I don't know how you guys are, but like, I know how I am. And like, if you mess with my money, I get kind of sensitive about it. Meaning, like, I don't hold it against you, but you're going to be at arm's length moving forward, not for anything else, but because I work for my money, and I work really hard for it, and I respect how I invest it. So you not respecting my investment makes me feel like I'm not respected. Right. So to me, it becomes more kind of painful. Right. Um, and the other big thing is the fear aspect, right? Like, I've got into partnerships for fears of wanting to do something by myself. Um, and those are difficult partnerships to get out of afterwards, because again, the conversation wasn't had at the beginning and we weren't clear on what was the exit. And then once you have money and things and properties involved, it gets kind of complicated, right? And on the phone, we were talking about most people do this 50-50 partnerships. And one of my mentors, your mentors, David Osborne, one of the guys that founded GoAbundance, said something the other day in GoAbundance, and he's like, realize that a 50-50 partnership a lot of the times is a 0-0 partnership. Because again, there is no leader, right? And one of the things that Gino Wickman talks about in the book of Traction as well is like, who's the decision maker, right? And really understanding in the partnership, if you're just friends, who's going to make the hard decisions, and who's going to be pulling the partnership and making the calls. And if you have a 50-50 partnership, who's that person, right? Like, when you exit, how are you going to exit, right? So having all those uncomfortable conversation at the beginning, which really takes, it's like almost like talking about like getting a prenup before getting married. It's really awkward, right? But it's something that if you can take your need to please people out of the picture, you should do it at the beginning, because that's when you guys are in the best kind of mood, right? Like, you're never going to be more happy than in the beginning of a partnership, right? Like, you're going to be super excited. You see the best in each other. You see the best in the future. You see the best in what you're creating. So why not really iron out those all the details about how you're going to do something from the very beginning?
100%. And I don't want it to sound all doom and gloom. So what I
No,
want to
yeah.
do with this episode is talk about some partnerships that we went into that didn't go well, and then some partnerships that we've been in and some of my students have been in that have done very well, right? And just kind of compare and contrast and look at why some of them didn't work and why some of them did work, right? And so I touched on this a little bit before, but the first quote unquote partnership I had was with a buddy of mine who we were both studying real estate and we wanted to get into multifamily apartments. And so we were investing in all the education, all the programs and everything else together. But the thing that I found was we had very similar personalities, we had very similar skill sets. And then just like E said, when it came to the execution, there weren't clear roles and responsibilities of like, okay, I'm going to do this, you're going to do this, and then we're going to come back and that's going to complete the package. It was just like, okay, we were both out looking for deals, and then we were both looking for investors, and we were both doing this, we were both doing that. And it was not efficient. Contrasting that to the partnership that I have with my two partners on the hotel in Rockport, we had those conversations up front of like, okay, they were going to bring the capital. I was going to run all the operations, but each of them also had different roles during the initial setup of like, all right, I'm going to be in charge of getting these contractors for the renovation because that was what their wheelhouse was. They're going to handle getting different permits and all these different pieces. I was going to handle coordinating the design with Kristen, handling all the logistics for that. And it was very laid out and clear around this is what the partnership looks like. This is what compensation looks like. This is what equity ownership looks like. This is what happens if something goes south. Like all of those things are spelled out. And at the end of the day, like when it comes to the operation side, I'm running point on that. So like we meet once a month, we review the numbers, we review KPIs together, we look for different ways to improve things. But at the end of the day, they're trusting me to make the right call and handle the daily operations through the team. So like there needs to be trust and expertise in different areas for that partnership to work and clear roles and responsibilities. And that's why it does so well. Contrast that with a couple of people that I've worked with in the past that have been students of mine, where they got together early on in a partnership. And I had this conversation with them that E and I were just talking about of like, you guys need to sit down and have a very frank conversation around whose roles and responsibilities are what. And if one of you gets a lead for another property, for another co-host deal, do you guys split that? Or does that person get that deal separate from the partnership? Or, just ironing out all of those details so it doesn't get weird. Well, they avoided that conversation. And then guess what? About 6 months in, it got a little weird because some of those opportunities came up and there wasn't clear roles and responsibilities and kind of status quo of like, if this happens, this is how we're going to handle it. And, I think it's dovetailing a little bit away from each other, or not dovetailing, but you know what I mean? They're splitting up a little bit. And the way to avoid that is to have those conversations at the beginning, to be honest with yourself. And anytime I'm recruiting now for talent on my team, I put them through a personality assessment. It's called 5 Voices. You can go to 5voices.com, and I love it. For me, it was very eye-opening, and I've done a ton of different assessments, but I found for me, this one worked the best. And so I know for me, like I'm a creative pioneer, which means I'm a very high level thinker. I can see the vision of everything and I like to get things done. Okay. To complement those skill sets, I need more of like a guardian pioneer, somebody that's very analytical, very detailed, that can handle a lot of like the operational stuff where I'm dancing around doing 50 different things, casting the vision. Oh, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. Having a partner that can ground you and be like, okay, well, here's what we need to execute first, then second, and then third, and kind of bringing order to everything. That's an effective partnership. But if you don't have that, if you don't understand what puts your team in flow and what they enjoy doing naturally to them, it's going to put a big strain on the whole team. It comes down to getting the right butts and the right seats on the bus at the end of the day. It's like looking at a chessboard. So if you want to go the partnership route, great. You still need to look at that chessboard and figure out what pieces am I missing that somebody else can fill based on their natural tendencies and their expertise. So you need to be more strategic rather than just jumping into bed with somebody, because it feels better to go at it as a team than it does to go at it alone. So I don't know if you want to chime in on
Yeah,
anything like that.
Yeah, so many things are coming to mind. Um, I love the right butts in the right seats analogy, but also understanding, right, is going back. I mean, if you guys have been listening to this podcast for a little while, you know we talk about this over and over. It's really understanding your why and understanding the vision, right? And understanding that sometimes at the beginning, you're gonna do, especially if you're a two-person partnership, you're gonna end up doing everything, right? Between the two of you. But it's even there is in knowing how big you want to scale and creating all the system and procedures behind that. It's in creating the roles for the future. So even if you're a two-person partnership, but your vision is we're going to grow to 100 units, then understand that the structure for 100 units is X. And there's going to be a bunch of roles in there that at the beginning, you, Mike, as that partner, is going to have to do, and me, E, as the partner, is going to have to do. But eventually, those roles are going to get leveraged out, right? And understanding that, like, at the end of the day, this is my area of expertise. This is where I want to stay in. I am willing to do this and this at the beginning, but with the understanding that long term, 12 to 18 months from now, this role is going to be replaced. And then another 12 to 18 months after that, this role is going to be replaced by somebody else. Because if not, it starts becoming really, really taxing. Because what happens if when you keep doing something that is outside of your wheelhouse and your element, it's going to start becoming draining. And this partnership is not going to be exciting. And you're going to start dreading the partnership and dreading your partner because you're not doing what you're supposed to do, right? Like the whole saying, like, if you love what you do, you're never working. That is true for me now because I only do what I love doing. So for me, I can work from 9 to 9, no problems, because I'm only doing what I love doing. But that wasn't the case at the beginning. And for me, bringing my wife into the partnership of the business completely revolutionized all of the systems, because I am the person, I'm the people person, right? So I love talking to clients, I can sell, but the organization, the back of the house was absolutely horrible. Tasha came in and in, I want to say like 3 to 4 months, she created all of the systems that we needed to run the back of the house seamlessly. And the experience was completely different. And what that freed me up for is to be better at my job, because it wasn't as heavy, right? That I wasn't dragging my feet on expense reports. I wasn't dragging my feet on supply runs and organization runs and organizing the team and everything else. All of that stuff was off my table now. And the only thing I was focused on was selling and clients.
I want to hit on that topic as well, because that's a whole nother animal, is being a business partner with your spouse, right? And that, I'll be honest, that was something that we navigated, Chris and I, for a good 6 months, honestly, before we kind of hit a stride of like, all right, this is going well. Because initially, like, she would help doing some designs here and there when we started, but I was running all the operations. I was literally doing everything. And then I started hiring virtual assistants and all this stuff. And then when she left her job, she had more bandwidth to get involved. And so then it was like, okay, what does that look like? And she's not working for me. She's working with me, right? And getting a sense of like, okay, these are the things that she's going to make the call on, and I'm not going to bust her chops. Like, she doesn't need my approval to do X, Y, Z, and vice versa. Like, I get the final say on these things. And then, we come to each other for input. But that was very challenging for a while, because then, like, you live together, you eat together, you work together, and separating that work from your life. And like, if you have a little disagreement in the business or a big disagreement in the business, how do you compartmentalize that at the dinner table with your kids? Right. And that was very challenging for a few months, until we kind of hit our stride of like, okay, I don't want to have these fights over these little stupid things. Like, I completely trust you and your skill sets on these things. Just go do it. Like, just own this side of the house and I'll own this side of the house. And if we need help from each other, great. But I think it's, again, it comes back to being really clear on who owns what, being clear that it's a partnership and not me above her or her above me, and that it's a true partnership. And these are the complementary skill sets that we bring to the table. And if I'm having issues, I can bring them to her. And if she's having issues, she can bring them to me. And then we can take that step back and be like, okay, what do we need to fix in the business? So one of the things that we were doing recently was I was revamping our core tenets for the company, or some people call it core values. And one of the things that I wanted in there was correct the process, not the person, right? It's not somebody's fault. It's a screw up in a process, or it's a faulty process. So how do we create better processes? What's a better way to streamline things, or a better communication methodology so that things don't get missed? But it's not a person's fault. At the end of the day, we're running the business. We need to do a better job of creating systems and communication and accountability. So,
yeah. But that's money also, right? Like that counts with a lot of maturity in understanding that. And I think, like, I mean, the way, so I think we have an idea of what a successful business owner is that is getting updated now over time. But the guy that rules his company by fear, that's not it, right? Like that's not, and your team is not going to perform for you long term. And it's the same thing with your partner, right? Like the fact that you have a very short temper, it's your problem, right? And it's not something that your partner should have to deal with. It's not something that it's excusable. That's because just the way you are, right? Like that's something that you should work on, because it's understanding, like in the moment, a lot of the times when you're going off your tangents, why is that happening, right? And going back to the understanding at the beginning, is like, how do you create a successful partnership? Is having a conversation at the beginning is like, okay, if we're having some trouble, if there is some friction here, who's the ultimate decision maker, right? And how do we deal with it? And how do we successfully communicate with each other, right? Because the partnership is not going to go anywhere if you can't communicate. And the partnership is never going to grow with the team and everything else behind you if people are afraid of coming to talk to you, because you're going to go into a rage fit. Because people are going to be like, you know what, man, it's whatever. I don't want to deal with this, right? But that doesn't help you. And the other thing is, and this was hard for me at the beginning, just let it go, right? If you trust somebody to be on your team or to be part of your partnership, and they have a role that you guys have agreed upon, that is their role. And I don't even need to look at it, right? So my partnership with John, so John and I buy apartment buildings together. We have very similar personality on a lot of things. So we think similar on a lot of things, but we're fundamentally different on a couple of things. And on those things that we're fundamentally different on, I don't even question it. I don't even need to know. If John says it's a go, it's a go. And if I say it's a go, it's a go. And there is no questioning, because that is not my area of expertise. So like really owning the fact that you've given the responsibility away to somebody else for a reason is because you don't know how to do it. So when it comes down to it, don't try to do it in the moment just because you feel like they're doing it wrong, or just because you need to control people.
100%. 100%. So just to recap it, right? Before jumping into a partnership, just ask yourself a few different questions. Again, what is the goal of the business? What skill sets am I lacking in that somebody else could fill? And are they in alignment with where we want to go? And then if you find that person, then have that crucial conversation up front around, here's the vision for the company. Here's how much money we're going to put into it if you got to do some financial investments. Here's what my roles and responsibilities are. Here's what your roles and responsibilities are. Over time, we can reassess and reevaluate, but hopefully over time, as this business continues to grow, we'll take more stuff off of our plate and fill in that org chart with other people that can take some of this stuff off. But at first, it's just us, and we got to both be in it 100%. We both got to deliver 100%. Because again, if you find someone that you partner with and you're giving 100% and they're giving 75%, again, it's going to build that animosity. Like, why am I the one grinding? Why am I the one pulling this horse? Like, we need to work together on this. So it's a personality, it's a value, and it's a culture fit and a skill set fit for a strong partnership.
Yeah. And I think what you talked about earlier in doing personality tests, it's super important because a lot of the times people have, so when I met Mike, for example, he worked as an accountant. So my natural assumption about Mike is that he was analytical, system driven, and that he was going to be the guy that does all the analysis and really the implementer. The fact that that's what somebody does for a living does not make them who they are as people, and does not mean that that's their natural abilities. And a lot of the times we have come to act in a certain way out of necessity. But when you get down to it and you do a personality test, you can really see what somebody's made of. And having this difficult conversation, asking those questions, you can really understand, am I just, are you who I need? Is this the partnership that we need for each other? Like, are you my implementer and I'm your visionary? Or are we both actually visionaries and you have just come to do for living implementer like tasks, but that's not ultimately who you are and what really lights your fire. And if you're coming to this partnership doing the same things, you're gonna, one, resent me, two, resent the partnership, and three, not give everything you can to this partnership, because ultimately this is not your power. You're not empowered in this partnership the same way you're not empowered being an accountant, because ultimately you didn't like it. But if you don't ask the questions and really get to know the other person, you're never going to know.
100%. And then the last step is hire an attorney to draft up your operating agreement, because they're going to ask you, they're going to sit you down and ask you a lot of those tough questions. And they're going to force you to think about what happens if, this doesn't work out and somebody wants out. What does that look like? What happens if this partner dies? What happens if, whatever they'll walk you through a bunch of different scenarios, and then they'll document it in the operating agreement. So if stuff ever does go sideways, you have this document that you both signed off on that's legally binding. That's like, if this happens, this is how we're going to handle it. So it'll help you think through, again, like getting that prenup, like plan for the divorce before the wedding. It sounds morbid, but at the same time, it's like, this is what you need to do. And it's going to help open that straightforward communication of like, this is what we're going to attack. And if stuff happens, here's how we're going to handle it. And here's how we're going to communicate. But I think those, following some of those pointers, and then just being honest with yourself. Do you need a partner? Do you actually need one? The answer for most people is no, you don't. You just need some courage, and you need a support group of people around you. But do you need a partner? No, you don't.
Yeah.
If you want one, that's fine. And if it's the right fit, great. But to start in this business, you don't need one. You really don't. I'll just say that.
Yeah. And I literally had this conversation this past weekend. Somebody came to the house, and then when I get started in real estate, and they're like, do you think I should get a partner for my first deal? And the thing is this, right? Like, in our real estate culture, that's been a way that a lot of people that are the so-called gurus have done it, right? Like, they tell you, hey, I'll mentor you, I'll be in this deal with you. And so it's kind of created, at least in my mind, has created this need to be in partnership with people that have done it before, to kind of show the way. And my question to him was like, what, again, I've been trained by Mike. So what is the vision? Is like, well, I want this to be me and my wife. I'm like, okay, so like, why are you taking a partnership with somebody that's not your wife? If that is the goal at the end, and you've bought houses before, you've lived in houses before, you've rented properties before, you've rented Airbnbs before, why do you need somebody that has experience when you can learn it firsthand with your wife or with whoever that partner has to be? And you're not approaching this from a fear space. I think a lot of people look at partners, again, from a place of fear and needing to be handheld and needing to be felt like you're enough just because you have me as your partner. But I'm the first person, if you come to me, you're like, hey, you want to partner on this? If that doesn't suit my wheelhouse, I'm the first person to tell you no. Because again, I know that my best use is not to partner with somebody that has never done a deal before, because that is not my strength, right? Like, I don't want to coach you through it. I don't want to hold your hand through it. My value is in partnership with people that have skill sets that I need, that I've found out over time that I'm not great at, but we're in alignment. But don't act out of fear. A partner is not, like a partnership is not the answer to get you started.
You don't need one, is what I want to get to. If you want to do one, that's fine, but you don't need it. And just be clear about the intention of the partnership for the long term. So hopefully you guys found that helpful. Again, more of the story, you don't need one. If you want one, great. Use some of these questions and some of these processes to think through and assess, is this going to be an effective long-term partnership? And if so, great, then move forward. I've partnered with people successfully. He's done it successfully. It's just thinking through, is this the right partner? And do we have the right vision and the right complementary skill sets? And that's all it comes down to. And then it's just getting all your ducks lined up in a row. But that's it for this week's show. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys took some notes. If you guys ever need to reach out, join the free Facebook group. I'm active in there. He's bouncing around in there. Mike Riley's bouncing around in there. And then every Monday and Tuesday, we're doing live groups that are, live sessions inside that group. So make sure you join that group. We'll have the link down in the show notes below. And I will see you guys next week. Take care, everybody. Hey, STR Nation, if you enjoyed this episode, please make sure to hit that subscribe button and leave us a review. And in the comments, let us know what topics you want us to cover on upcoming episodes, and we'll make sure to get that in the books for you. And if you really want to learn how to launch, automate, and scale your short-term rental business, if you want to go deeper, then check out our free masterclass at strsecrets.com.